All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Joseph Downey. I'm joined here by Aaron Cybertron Zheng, and today we're going to go ahead and talk about him and the future of Pokemon VGC. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Doing well. So first, let's go ahead and talk about your past. Go ahead and introduce yourself from the standpoint of a VGC player.
Yeah, so I'm a competitive Pokemon player. I've been playing competitively since 2008, so really over half of my life now, which is really wild. So I used to compete super seriously between '08 to around 2015, 2017 or so. Won a couple of regional and national titles, got third at the World Championships in 2013. And then in more recent years, kind of transitioned over to becoming a content creator and a commentator for the Pokemon Company International. So I've commentated a lot of the major last World's finals, for example. And nowadays I do a little bit of everything, don't compete as much, mainly focus on making YouTube content where I try to teach people about the game and also continue to work as a commentator. But looking forward to when events come back eventually, because I do have kind of, a drive to compete once again.
Awesome. All right. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, I was going to ask, it's been a little while now, pretty much just right before COVID hit in about May, I think it was the last time we really saw you competing. So but you've been casting, commentating, content creating nonstop since then. So we can just move straight into that. Lately on your series Road to Rank that you've been doing just nonstop for as long as I can remember, for years now. You've been featuring teams about every 2 days, switching off with them, which is, first of all, intimidating just to know that you can do that. And second of all, I wanted to ask, how long did it take for you to be able to do something like that, to be able to switch between whether it's a weather team or like a slow mode team? How long did it take you to be able to just adapt that well?
That's a really good question. I feel like, it's never perfect, right? And for me, there's only a limited amount of time I have, to make content in the first place, especially because I don't do it full time. And so I guess to straightforward answer your question, I would say it's really years of practice as a competitor more than anything. I think as I made content, that was always, it came naturally to me, I think, because I had been competing for so long, and the experience as a competitor, trying out all these different team compositions, understanding how to play the game at a relatively high level, definitely helped me. And I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to start creating content in the first place, was because I felt like I had a lot to potentially offer and teach. And so, yeah, I don't know if there was a certain point in my YouTube kind of career. I started making videos in 2014 where it clicked immediately. But I'd say if anything, Sword and Shield has also been a complete change of pace because of the inclusion of rental codes, making it a lot easier to switch through a new team every 2 days, right? In previous generations, you had QR codes actually back with Sun and Moon, but those were a little bit more inaccessible and harder to use. And then before then, it was really just literally building my own teams, new teams every time. And so it definitely has become a lot easier to try out teams, especially teams that aren't, built by me. I get a lot of users and viewers that submit their teams, and that's really awesome. And I feel like, the original question was, how long did it take for me to be able to do this? And I would say it really is just the years of experience I had as a competitor that helped. And then with Sword and Shield, since I was switching through new teams so frequently, I think the first couple of months of it also helped me get acclimated, helped me learn, really how to learn a new team as quickly as possible, where I can kind of minimize the amount of time I spend, but maximize kind of the outcome of the video and the output of the video.
And not only do you get featured winning these matches online most frequently, but you're currently placed top 200 on the leaderboard, switching teams every day against people that will grind their team for weeks at a time to learn. So that is extremely impressive. And there's definitely a lot to learn from you. It's great because whether you're, throughout the week, you've already learned, if you watch your videos day to day, viewers have already learned 3 different teams and possibly 3 completely different modes to play with. So it's extremely helpful. And your YouTube channel is like a one-stop shop for everything you need to know about VGC.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So most recently, the teams that you've been using, I would say they're more unconventional. And this is, it's not the first time we've seen that happen, but you moved away from the standard intimidators and weather setters and stuff like that. And is it coincidental that they all came at the same time, or are you trying to dive into more interesting and innovative teams?
Yeah, I'd say generally I don't have a specific formula or approach. It's really just I try to queue up a bunch of teams for a week and see which ones are interesting based off, what I've seen online, what has performed well in tournaments, if any tournaments have happened, or if, sometimes users will just submit teams to me as well. And so I'd say generally I like to feature a wide mix, right? I know that some people watch because they want to just learn the strongest meta stuff, right? And some people want to be able to, take like a tournament winning team and be able to just pilot it super well. A lot of other players and a lot of other viewers, I think, often don't want to see the meta stuff. They want to see stuff that's more, more maybe innovative, or things that just feature Pokemon that aren't used very frequently. And that's, kind of, I'd say, more from the entertainment side. And when I started the channel, is really mainly to try to teach people about the game and educate them and just try to get them to, become a high level player if that's something they're interested in. But of course, with YouTube, I soon found out that a lot of people watch because they just like seeing, cool Pokemon being used as well. And so generally my goal is to get a wide mix of that, right? And try to not stick to one formula, one team specifically. And so I try to keep that in the back of my mind, right? If I've thought like, okay, I featured this restricted Pokemon or this tournament winning team, can I find other archetypes that are a little bit different so that it's not boring to watch like the same stuff over and over again? But that's like the general rule of thumb I have, but it's really based off kind of what teams I've seen that are around there right now that I think would be interested in featuring. So I don't have like a specific approach, but generally I know that people watch for different reasons and I try to accommodate all of them throughout, a week or two.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Super helpful. Now, speaking of like team building and different modes and stuff like that, you did just mention a hunger to return to the competitive scene, which first of all is awesome because I think some people have been really waiting for that. And also that brings in another question. It's been a while of you featuring other people's teams and getting to learn like every single style that there really is to play right now. When you go in to build your first team, not to give anything away and let people prepare for you in tournament, but where do you start when you have so much just knowledge as you do right now about the standards?
Yeah, I think like generally, team building is an art in Pokemon. It has, in my opinion, become a lot more important than it used to be because now the level of like play, just like removing the team building fact, like the ability to predict, the ability to play well throughout a match has gone up significantly, partially because of, the amount of good resources and good teams that are out there. So I think team building is also interesting because if you're team building for a tournament, say regional championship or worlds, that's the premier tournament. It's very different than how you might approach team building for like building on the ladder. And so the general answer I'd give you is if it were for a major tournament that I was serious about winning, the idea is basically trying to find something that has an edge against the rest of the metagame, right? So whether that be discovering a specific Pokemon, specific combination of Pokemon / strategies, or just taking what's common and then like modifying it slightly. Like there's several different examples of how you can really be one step ahead of the meta. And sometimes it's as simple as, using an unconventional move on a Pokemon that, completely swings things over. Sometimes it's discovering a new Pokemon that no one's using. I think when people think about competitive Pokemon, Sejong Park's Pachirisu that won the World Championships in 2014 is, one of the best answers of this, where it was like he used it because it was just one step ahead of the meta at the moment. No one had prepared for it. In that metagame, everyone was used to Amoonguss, and so a lot of players were using the item safety goggles to try to beat Amoonguss and counter it. Well, the Pachirisu is also similar to Amoonguss in which you can redirect attacks, but it can't be countered with a simple item, right? And so meta trends are something that top players always have to follow. And I think when you're trying to team build, you ideally build something that has an edge and gives you an advantage. Because in Pokemon, it's a really hard game. Everyone loses and matchups are a big component as well. And so if you can figure out something in the team building process that gives you an advantage so that you don't have to play, make really crazy predictions throughout a tournament or a game, it just increases your probability of winning basically. So yeah, generally I'd say I get like a holistic view of the meta. I look at what the top Pokemon sets are and then try to see if I can come up with something that basically does well against most of the top teams and then kind of go from there.
Gotcha. Yeah, completely makes sense. So a counter meta style rather than following the trends.
Right. And sometimes, the answer might be to just follow the trends, right? Maybe like you're confident in your ability to play better than everyone else and take like the top team composition, but, just modify ever so slightly for your personal play style. A great example is like 2015 when a lot of Japanese players are all using, the same core of Cresselia, Heatran, Amoonguss, Landorus, Kangaskhan. And even though people knew about this combination, they just like had mastered kind of playing with it and did a really, really good job with it. So it's always interesting. Each metagame is very different. And so there's not like a one size fits all answer towards how you might want to approach it, but it's really based off, at least in my eyes, I think a lot of top players will often try to build teams that give them advantage before the game even starts so that it's easy. The decision-making process while battling is easier.
That's a preparation time. That makes sense. So recently it was announced that VGC is going to stay in Pokemon Sword and Shield, which some people were surprised about that. Some people were confused why others were surprised about that at all. But as somebody who started VGC in at the very beginning in Diamond and Pearl, when VGC really became a thing. What did you think about that? Were you excited, expecting? What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, primarily because the Diamond Pearl remakes are the first ones that are not being built kind of in-house by Game Freak. And so because development by it is just by another group, it makes sense that they don't want to shift over competitive play. And I don't know how those games will pan out, but I think if it were being developed by Game Freak, then I would probably be a little bit more surprised that we're not playing on it. But because it's not, then I think it naturally makes a lot of sense. I mainly am curious how much longer we're going to stay in Sword and Shield, right? I think like my expectations at least another year, but people are saying, okay, what if it's another 2 or 3 years? And then that's such a long cycle for just one game. So I'm not sure. I personally didn't have any like strong reactions once we found out. I feel like I was pretty lukewarm, indifferent, like where it's like, okay, if we shifted over, it'd be cool. But I also think Sword and Shield does have a lot of good, strong foundation for a game. So now it's really hoping that they come up with innovative formats that keep people interested in the game, right? We've had a list of rotating formats since Sword and Shield has really come out. And so obviously you're not going to get as much of an influx of players solely from like a brand new release and, just new game sales. And so I do expect the player base to maybe decline a little bit just because, it's been a couple of years into Sword and Shield. So I'm hoping that, they're able to come up with innovative rule sets that are fun to play and also hopefully viewer friendly.
So do you think now is a good time then for new, possibly fresh competitive players to really start getting into the scene so they can weed their way through other beginners before the player base becomes more difficult?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like an optimal time to get started. Honestly, it's like I feel like you often see the boom at the start of a game release, right? Where it's like the first 2 months after a game comes out, everyone's super, super interested. And then like interest maybe dies out a little bit. To me, like I would say, get started whenever. Like you can literally get started now, with rental codes. It's super easy to just try out teams and see whether or not you like it. But because formats rotate every couple of months and, I see plenty of players who are like, oh, I'm not super interested in this format because I don't like playing with Dynamax or I don't like playing with restricted Pokemon. So, maybe keep your eye out on the format, see which one fits like what you enjoy playing more. Generally, I'd say they're all fun, but, some players prefer certain mechanics in certain formats over others. So my answer is honestly to just dive in, at least like give it a try out some teams. If you decide you don't like it, maybe just wait until the metagame develops a little bit or until the format rotates, but it's never too late. And I guess right now is an interesting time where it's like there's probably less beginners playing than the beginning of Sword and Shield, right? And so the competition might be actually a little bit more intense on like a high level just because you're running into players who are a little bit more serious. But I also think like in order to improve in the game, you need to lose a lot and you need to learn from your losses. And so, if you can play against high level players more frequently and then learn from those, then that's also a way to kind of accelerate your growth as you play the game.
Definitely. I mean, coming from you, that's very much lines up with the way your road to ranked kind of goes, where you get almost more excited over losing than you do winning, because you always have videos where you'll win 3 or 4 games in a row, but the ones where you do lose, you finally learn something new, which is harder when you get to the level you're at. So yeah, that definitely goes in line with what you've shown. So let's see here. So we talked about Diamond and Pearl not going to be moving over to the remakes for competitive. But to keep that, to keep it in Sword and Shield, you talked about how formats have to keep changing the way they have. Personally, which my opinion doesn't, mean anything to the millions of players in Pokemon, but personally, just my viewpoint that some others share is that these format changes have been fresh. They've added like so many new things, so many changes, as not having restricteds with Dynamax, having restricteds without Dynamax. These changes have been really fresh and fun, but at some point it's going to get a lot more difficult to keep fresh formats in. So do you have any, ideas about how the formats can stay fresh, or do you know maybe what's going to keep the most people around from what we've already seen?
Yeah, I honestly have no idea. And this is kind of like uncharted territory because it's like normally, we do switch games like after 2 years or so. But because even though we have remakes coming out, we're not switching games. It's really just a brand new area. So I'm not 100% sure. First of all, like I would say I like rotating formats as frequently as they do, but from a competitive standpoint, it actually makes it a little bit hard for metagames to develop fully, right? Like when you don't have too many major events in a 3-month period, the top team builders aren't like taking it super seriously because they're not building for major tournaments. And so sometimes players like it when a metagame stays for a little bit longer, right? Because you then get to see it develop and kind of advance a little bit more. Whereas if you only play for it for 3 months, like there's so many innovative ideas that players just haven't come up with yet. So that timing is going to be interesting because as of right now, they've been kind of switching every 3 months or so. Feels like a reasonable amount. I wonder if they, maybe do a format and then like stretch the period for a little bit longer. But, they kind of touched their toes with removing Dynamax as a mechanic for this most recent format. So I think you can continue to do that. They had kind of like a artificial ban list back in Series 6 where they just banned like the top 10 most used Pokemon from the previous series. That's another idea. I definitely expect to see like 2 restricted Pokemon rather than 1 being featured at some point, because that was kind of the norm in 2010, 2016, 2019. So I feel like that will probably play a factor as well. And then, I don't know, there's so many fun ideas they could come up with. I would love to see them explore a little bit, something, I don't know, like Little Cup or regional deck stuff. But then that opens like a whole new bag of, or a whole new can of worms in terms of balance. And, I personally don't know what goes into the decision-making process when they choose like the next format. So I'm not sure, but I'm optimistic. And I will say I've enjoyed most of the formats that we've had so far. So I don't know how much longer we're playing against Sword and Shield. So I wonder like if it is another 2-3 years, like that's a lot of formats to rotate through. So I'm wondering like, at what point do the ideas, like, do you have to branch out and come up with like really innovative stuff rather than the ones that people are expecting?
Yeah. To counter the possibility of them having to come up with those ideas, maybe it is that something you talked about with adding in to restricted Pokemon and the way you talked about putting a ban list on the formats that we've seen most recently that didn't have any ban lists. That's actually kind of got me thinking that maybe they're setting themselves up to have some flexibility and just mix and match the ideas that they've created, these probably like through the first 10 series now. Maybe mix and match those until we do move on to a new game, kind of give themselves some time with new formats so they can just mix them around. But we'll see what happens. Aside from that, I mean, competitive, it's going to pick back up soon. Like, I'm not sure that we know when, but events have been planned and canceled, which is, even more stepping stones than we've had recently. So they're showing signs of life. There are people out there that really want these events. And when we do get live events back, but not only live, but competitive, you talked about how much serious it is when there are major tournaments going on, when it's not just invitationals. What do you think we're looking to see when live and major tournaments come back? What is going to be like the biggest change in the scene from what we've had this last year?
It's really hard to pinpoint an answer on that just because I honestly have no idea when the timing of that will be. I think like some regions are slowly doing maybe some small grassroots tournaments, nothing official. And I think just based off the current situation, I'd be surprised for live events to like return anytime like soon, at least in the next couple of months. If anything, I'd at least expect it to come out like maybe after like winter rolls over, like this upcoming winter. So it's really hard to say based off timing. Like, I don't know what the format will be like. I don't know how many events will be. And it's just such like kind of an unprecedented situation that it's kind of tough to predict. I imagine a lot of people are eager to go to a tournament again, but it's mainly a question of safety, right? Like, are people attend if they feel safe and they feel like the tournament conditions are safe. So I'm not 100% sure, honestly. And I think it's partially just hard to predict because it's just uncharted territories for us right now.
All right, makes sense. Well, then we'll simplify the question a little bit and ask it this way: how excited are you personally for your Pokemon career, for events to go competitive and live again?
Yeah, I'm definitely eager to get back to things once we're in a state where we can return to events safely. So while I obviously miss them, I'd say I just want them to be, and I trust the organizers and Pokemon in making that judgment call. So I'm just really looking forward to the next time I can get back together with everyone safely, and it's just a safe environment for everyone. When that will be, like, time will tell. But eager to just even outside of the competition factor, just to be able to reunite with so many people that I haven't seen in years at this point, right? I think like it is wild that it's already been 2 world championships that have been skipped by. Like Worlds is typically kind of like one of the most exciting events to look forward to in the summer. It's just a nice opportunity to not only either compete or commentate, but also just a huge gathering of really friends and people from all around the world that you only literally get to see maybe once a year. And so definitely a lot of friends throughout the world that I miss, and I hope they're all doing well. And from the competitive side, yeah, I don't know what the circuit will look like once events return, but I do have like an itch to compete, whether that is, competing super seriously for the whole year or maybe just for events. I'm not sure yet because it's really based off timing and how stuff outside of Pokemon for me is going. But generally I'd say, yeah, I do have a itch to scratch and want to play in tournaments again, just when it's safe.
Great. Yeah. So for those who, you did just hit 30 million views on your YouTube channel. So congratulations on that. That's amazing and impressive. So there's plenty of people out there, obviously, who are used to hearing your voice, your commentating. They're comfortable with you explaining the game to them, basically, and keeping them in the loop. So for those that are going to miss you on the caster's desk, how are you going to split your time between those? Do you plan on moving just for a short period of time completely to competitive, or will there be like a mix in there?
Yeah, I haven't made like a concrete decision yet. Once again, a lot of it is based off timing, when return events come back, how my life is looking at that moment. I work full time outside of Pokemon, and I'm currently planning on going to business school in about a year from now. And so I don't know how school will be. And I'd probably want to, focus my efforts more on making sure everything goes well once I'm there, at least in the opening months. And so, yeah, I don't have a concrete plan. I think generally what I've done in previous years is compete and commentate, right? Like whatever events they ask me to commentate, I normally will. And then for the ones that, I am not commentating, I'll typically try to compete at potentially, or just, at least stop by and hang out with people. But I think the upside is that Pokemon has so many amazing commentators that there's just like a surplus of talent. And so I to answer the question, it's really just based off my schedule, and with things like having no kind of immediate future, it's hard to answer for sure. But typically I like to, commentate whenever I can and whenever they ask me to. And then for those events that I'm not commentating, then I will look at playing if it's kind of local or convenient to get to.
Yeah. All right, great. And then in terms of your YouTube channel, moving away from the competitive sides of thing, your Road to Ranked series, you've been consistently updating all the time, not only with playing, but also keeping people in the loop of what new series are going to bring in terms of like meta that you try to predict and counter metas and things like that. So what else are we going to be seeing from you on your YouTube channel when the next series comes up? The next couple of months, you hit your 30 million followers. Do you have any 30 million views? Do you have any plans with your YouTube channel of how you're going to elevate content and stuff like that?
Nothing too major, I'd say, for now. Like one thing I've really appreciated about the channel and kind of all the people that watch is that I've been doing the same thing basically for 6-7 years, just playing battles. Like it's not, it's definitely not the number one formula to winning on YouTube, but that's never been the goal for me, right? I kind of like just being able to do something that takes low production effort, right? I don't have to spend hours on hours editing. It's easier for me to do, and that makes doing it on a daily basis, easier as well. But at the same time, it's been able to draw in a decent, loyal viewership base, which I'm very, very grateful for. So for that reason, I think if I were focused on, doing YouTube full time or be, focused on growth, then I would probably approach it a little bit differently. But because it's really just a hobby for me at the end of the day anyway, I don't see much reason to deviate further from it. There are other content ideas that I really want to try out. There's some that I think would just take a lot of kind of a time effort. So for those ideas, whether it be video essays or whatnot, I'd have to really find some free time to. And then there's other things I've kind of dipped my toes in, whether it's kind of tournament coverage or, kind of analysis of tournament games. I think those are probably a little bit more accessible and easier. So maybe those, but for the most part, I think sticking to the winning formula and, just making daily battle videos has worked out really well. So I don't see any reason to stop that or deviate from that. But maybe when time frees up, I'll explore some other ideas.
Yeah, I think between using Guzzlord and then having to play against the same player 3 times in a row, I think your content's kind of given itself its own fresh life. So Yeah, you've been doing a great job.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for everything you've opened up for here. And yeah, we really appreciate everything you've been doing for the community, because you're on, like, you talk about how much, Pokemon is a hobby for you, but really, honestly, you're the inside and out of it. Like, on all levels, people can come to Pokemon, find you as kind of a comfort zone. So thank you for everything you do in the community. And we really appreciate you opening up here for us.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I really appreciate those kind words and appreciate everyone who continues to just support the competitive scene, watch my videos, and just, yeah, hope everyone enjoys continuing to play. And I'm looking forward to what the future holds.
And so for esports followers or just new Pokemon fans in general, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Cybertron VGC, and that's also my YouTube handle. And those are the two primary socials that I use.
Great. All right. And make sure to follow ESTNN, Esports News Network, on Twitter and YouTube. And we will see everybody very soon. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.